So here's a quick rundown of the entire Terminator franchise in my opinion. The Terminator, pretty good movie. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, an awesome and great movie. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, mediocre. And Terminator Salvation, trash. So how does Terminator Genisys live up to these titles? Well, so Terminator Genisys is the fifth entry in the Terminator franchise. It's directed by Alan Taylor and stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Emilia Clarke, Jason Clarke, and Jai Courtney. It starts off with the same premise of the first Terminator movie, that Kyle Reese has to go back in time in order to protect Sarah Connor from a Terminator who's trying to kill her. But within the timeline, it gets changed around, and when he gets back to 1984, Sarah Connor is already really awesome, and like she is in Terminator 2, and the Terminator is actually a protector of hers, and he has to figure out what's going on. So there's an entire other section I'm not going to be talking about because I feel like it's full of spoilers. If you want to know about that section, you can probably go watch the trailer because the trailer is full of spoilers. However, be warned, because if you do watch the trailer, you might end up feeling how I felt, which was that I was not really excited for this movie. I thought that this movie was going to be another Salvation, and it wasn't going to be as good as any of the other ones, and it was just going to be another terrible reboot. And though it was better than I expected it to be, that's not a very high bar to pass, so let's talk more about Terminator Genisys. So the two main things I was nervous about going into this movie were how John Connor was going to be depicted, and overall how the Terminator was going to be depicted by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was really excited to see him back in the role, but I was also afraid that they were going to mess it up and he wasn't going to be as awesome as he was in the original movies. However, Arnold Schwarzenegger was definitely my favorite part of this film. He did a great job as the Terminator again. They depicted him very well, just like he was in Terminator 2. And though I didn't get as many laughs as I did in Terminator 2, it was still a really good performance by him, and it probably was the best thing about this movie overall. And John Connor was fine in this movie too. Jason Clarke did a good job as John Connor. The storyline for him was a little bit different, but it was good overall. There wasn't anything I felt that was wrong with it. I actually felt like it was a new take to the series, which I actually liked. Emilia Clarke wasn't bad in the movie too, though she was a bit rocky at the role a few times. There were enough times in this movie that she was really awesome that it made up for it, and she was a pretty good Sarah Connor. The only performance problem I had with this movie was Jai Courtney. Now, I didn't like the actor who played Kyle Reese in the first Terminator movie. I thought they could have picked someone better, but I did like the character of Kyle Reese. But compared to this Kyle Reese, that guy deserves an Oscar, because this one is just flat out bad. See, in the first one, Kyle Reese is the one that comes back to protect Sarah Connor, and you feel for him emotionally, and there's that entire love story going down, and you are actually into it. But in this one, Jai Courtney portrays it so poorly that I didn't feel anything between Emilia Clarke or him, because he was just bad. They didn't have any chemistry together, and it was just not good for him at all. Most of the movie, he pretty much just had his like mean face on, or his angry face like this, but then when he did show emotion, it was over the top and crazy, and it was not good. It was a terrible pick for him as Kyle Reese. I don't know why they decided to do that. They could have picked anyone else, and it probably would have been better than this guy. Now, past the characters, the storyline for this movie is trying to pretty much reboot the franchise, which I can respect, and it is original for what it's doing, and there are some good plot points to this movie. The first half hour of the storyline is actually really, really good. I like how it shows the future in the beginning, and the changed 1984 timeline is also really cool to see. It shows a mixture of like kind of Terminator 1, Terminator 2, and it's cool to just look at that and be like, wow. But after this, the events of this movie transpire, and everything starts changing for the Terminator universe. And it's trying to show how all these different events are different now, but it's actually changing so much, it's becoming convoluted, and when you focus on one point, a new point has come up, and you have to focus on that one, and then it gets confusing and not great after that. Overall, there are some fun parts to that section of the story, but a lot of it is really convoluted and confusing, and that weighs down the movie quite a bit. Though the special effects and animation aren't bad in this movie, it's nothing I haven't seen before. A lot of the animation I've seen in previous Terminator movies, and even new animation I've seen in other movies nowadays, And the fight scenes and battles in this movie aren't super great either. They're just kind of generic. They're not terrible, but there's nothing I saw in the movie that kept me thinking about it after the movie ended. My biggest flaw with this film, though, is that you never can really connect a lot to the characters. In the first two films, you connect a lot to pretty much every character in the movie. In Terminator, it's Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese. You connect to those two. And the second one, you connect to everyone in that movie. You connect to the Terminator, you connect to John Connor, Sarah Connor, pretty much everyone in that movie you connect to, and you emotionally feel for them. However, this movie suffers from what the third and fourth one did, and it doesn't develop the characters correctly that makes me feel for them emotionally. I'm also starting to think that since Kyle Reese is connected to all the main characters, Jai Courtney might have just been weighing down the experience of this movie, and that's why I didn't feel for these characters. I never really felt for the relationship between him and Sarah Connor. I never really felt for the Terminator and him and their bonding or whatever they're doing. And I didn't care for him and John Connor's experience together either. There was no real connection between a lot of the characters in this movie except for Sarah Connor and the Terminator. And though that section of relationship is good, it doesn't fix all the other relationship problems I have with this movie. So overall, you had decent performances from some people, a really good performance from Arnold Schwarzenegger, and a really bad performance from Jai Courtney. You had a story that started out pretty good, but then got too big for itself and tried to change a bunch of things, and it just didn't work out. The special effects in this movie weren't super great, but they weren't bad either, and you never really feel for the characters, like I said. So, this movie is nowhere near as good as the first two movies, but I will say it's better than 3 and 4, and I will give Terminator Genisys 3 stars. On an end note, if you guys do end up seeing this movie this weekend, I strongly urge you to go see it in 3D. The 3D in this movie is awesome throughout. There's tons of things being thrown at you at different times, whether they be big things or maybe just small things like ash or different pieces of metal. And there's a lot of depth to the movie as well. And overall, it's just a really pleasant viewing experience. Even if you completely hate this movie, you can still leave saying at least one thing positive about the movie if you decide to spend the extra bucks. So have you guys seen Terminator Genisys yet? What did you think about it? How did it compare to the other 4 films in the series? Whatever you thought, comment below and let me know. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.